the the two centers here, the first 4 rows. Center row here, one on the other side. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here for the Affirming Fatherhood Conference in the year 2022. It is such a tremendous honor to have you here, and we know that people will be coming in and out, but let's go ahead and get started because we are indeed on a really, really tight schedule. In person here, we are at the Crossover Church in Tampa, Florida on East Fowler Avenue, a tremendous space with tremendous staff, and we are so grateful to be here. We were here last year, and the feedback that we got was, let's go back to the Crossover Church when we're in person here in Tampa. So here we are. Thank you so much. For those of you who are virtual, we hope you have downloaded the web or the mobile app because there's lots of things we need to do with Hoover. So please make sure that you've done that. And for those of you who are social media people, I'm old, so I'm not one of those people like some of you all are. But make sure that you're tweeting and Facebooking and Instagramming and TikToking and LinkedIn and all those kinds of things that you do with using AFC 2022. Hashtag AFC 2022. Let's get that out there so people will know that we are indeed rocking and rolling. So again, thank you so much for being here. We have a packed conference with tremendous speakers, tremendous presenters, and we are so, so glad to have you both in person and virtually. So I'm going to ask Mr. Michael Morgan to come up and help me because part of what we're going to do opening the conference is to ask a question with a poll that you will answer from Hoover.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AFC 2022. Social media hashtag AFC 2022. All right, that's your hashtag. AFC 2022. All right, this morning we're going to try to engage you guys with a little activity on the Hoover app. All right, so if you have your phones with you, we're going to ask you to open your phone, open the Hoover app, okay? In there you will see AFC 20, Affirming Fatherhood Conference 2022. All right, you will look for the section that says live and you hit live. And then you will be with us. As a matter of fact, you will see me on stage right now. Everyone there with me in here? Because I can't talk to who's not here. Reese, are you using, so if you're using the same email that you signed in with, you have to do that. If you don't have that, I will give you the code in a few minutes. But for right now, I want to give those of you who are on with me an activity that we're going to do. I don't think we're going to be able to put it live in here, but you should be able to see it on your phone. And it says, do you see where it says session polls? Okay. It says, other than your biological father, what man played the most important role in your life? And now what you're going to do there is you're going to select that arrow and then put one word there. And what that word is going to do is it's going to create a word cloud. How many of you ever seen that before? Word cloud. All right, and then we'll see what that looks like based on what our feedback is. So we might have to do something in the meantime while people are doing that. So I see on here grandfather. Y'all see that? Uncle, brother, coach, stepfather. I see a full name, Leonard Sane. We see Uncle Hubert. We see colleague. We see mentor. We see coach. Is everyone seeing those things popping up? All right, so we're trying to make this word cloud popping, and what we'll do is we'll save that result, and then you'll be able to access that to see what everybody said. Maybe we'll give it another minute so that we can get some more entries. Do me a favor, if you're online watching and you put something in, put that word in and then say online next to it so that I know that there's someone who was online that did it as well. All right, so we're going to thank you for playing the poll this morning. If we read, we see teacher, uncle, grandfather, coach, colleagues, brothers. We have some full names. We have coach, Uncle Hubert. We have favorite teacher. We have Leonard Sane. We have Jimmy Baskin. And so we just want to thank you all for participating this morning. All of these people are important in the fatherhood role. And so we're glad that you knew people who were important in your lives and that you could put them on this morning to share in the cloud. All right? We're going to continue on with the conference.
Thank you, Michael, so much. So again, thank you for participating in the poll. One of the things that it shows us is that fathers and father figures are important. And one of the things that we've done here in Tampa is that our programs reach out to fathers and father figures. And so we just want to honor at this conference all of those other men who have stepped into that role. So I'm going to bring up Braylon Wall, and Braylon's going to take us to the next session.
Well, good morning, everybody, again, and welcome to the Affirming Fatherhood Conference 2022. We're going to start you guys off with some words of wisdom. A very good person here. He's going to lead us through some stretching, exercise ideas, and we're also going to want some participation. So any of you that feel energized this morning or want to get energized, we're going to ask you to come on up. We'll let him do that, okay? Now, I'm introducing Shelton Gilliard, sitting right up front here. He's a third-year PhD student at the University of South Florida School of Works. His research interest involves health disparities, early identification of autism spectrum disorder, access to mental health services, and research that promotes athlete well-being and the field of sports social work. Sheldon is a certified sports performance trainer, a former Olympic level athlete. He's won 10 national weightlifting championships on the road to breaking multiple American records at the Olympic team trials. He has extensive experience in training athletes of all abilities, including individuals with autism spectrum disorder. Sheldon has a diverse background in the field of social work. His doctoral journey began after working as a contract manager for a local funder in Tampa. His experience also includes direct clinical practice in pediatrics with specialization in intellectual disabilities. Shelton employs a team approach to supporting the success of individuals, families, and communities. He has dedicated his career to connecting research community-based practice. And without any further ado, Mr. Shelton Gilliard.
How's everybody doing this morning? Station? Ready to go. All righty. That technology is working. So, again, my name is Shelton Gilliard. Graylin, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's truly an honor to be here at this year's conference. I think I was here for the first one several years back. And so it's good to see where the conference was then and where it's at now, still being dedicated to the needs and the specific interests of fathers and really embracing fathers. So my talk today is titled the Men's Health and Wellness Playbook. So what are those things that men need to have in their playbook to keep themselves healthy, as well as some of the other things that we'll talk about a little bit later in terms of stretching it and keeping healthy. One of the things that men should certainly do is access screenings. So when I say SAQ, I mean screening first, getting screened for certain health conditions, being active, seeking and being engaged in an active lifestyle, but then also asking informed questions. So engaging with your healthcare providers in a dialogue about your health and your well-being. But before I get going, I would just want to set the stage. So with my athletes that I work with, any of my wrestling fans out there, you guys know who this guy is, right? You guys know how to do a woo, right? Can I get a woo? One clap, two claps. One clap, two claps. Three claps, one clap. Two claps, three claps. Now give me a Ric Flair. My athletes love when I get it turned up, but nobody set the stage better than this guy. I grew up watching this guy in sports, and I always thought he was entertaining, but he always set the tone for a good time, which is what I'm sure you're going to have here at the conference throughout the course of the next couple of days. So my objectives for my conversation today is to discuss the importance of certain men's health screenings. This is very, very vital to positive outcomes for men. Describe health conditions which threaten the health status of men specifically, and then also provide where really my expertise lies is around functional exercise brought from my background in sports and performance. As Graylin said in my introduction, for a long time, a big portion of my background was dedicated to my aspirations to compete. I got a chance to compete against some of the best athletes in the world. I was considered one of the best in my weight class for a long period of time, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But it's a blend. It's a blend, and it's things that I think will resonate with men of any age, things that I still do in this, in this stage of my life. I'm a little bit older. I can't lift and do some of the things I used to do, and so that's what I hope to impart on you today. A little bit about me. Again, I'm a third-year PhD student at the University of South Florida in the School of Social Work, and as Graylin also alluded to, my hope is that I can leave a little piece of myself with fathers specifically, with men specifically that may not be engaged in the type of wellness that we oftentimes need sometimes to be healthy, to be the best fathers that we can be. This title of father is very, very important, near and dear to my heart. So just a little bit about me. I've also worked with kids of all ability. I also work with adults. And integrate sports in all that I do, integrate my background in behavior analysis, behavior intervention as well. But more importantly, I try to connect with diverse populations. I've worked in different communities. I feel like I can go into different communities and talk to folks. But specifically, men, we have a different kind of dialogue, and we hear it differently from one of our own. And again, out of all the titles that I've had, the one I'm most proud of is father. We can't take care of anybody if we don't take care of ourselves. So, what would be a fatherhood conference without talking about our kids? My daughter, Soleil, my little princess, she's the youngest of the clan. A little sensitive at times, but my youngest. Skylar, she's the middle child. She's my one that pushes the buttons. She's the one that probably is going to give me the most challenge. You can see her personality is already evolving, and doesn't care what paper I have to write. Doesn't care about I've been up. She doesn't care about any of that. She wants her time, and that's really all that matters in the world. So, but I love my girls, and Skylar is definitely one that is just to share a little bit again for you guys that don't know what Olympic weightlifting is. I did break. I had the American record for a period of time. I did win 10 national championships in the sport of Olympic weightlifting, and the time, dedication, effort it took to get there was enormous. Sacrifices and things that are necessary. But those things prepared me for the task of fathering those two little girls. And I credit my background as an athlete to being a good father. I aspired to be the best athlete that I could be. I could potentially be the best father that I could be with the same work ethic and dedication required. But I wanted to say that before talking about my son Shelton, who's my first. And I say this only to say this, that dedicated almost 20 years of my life competing, aspiring to reach my own dreams. I got to a point where I was the best, one of the best in the country, the best in my weight class. I set the national standard, and actually trained the guy that broke my records. So I left a legacy behind. And I say this also to reinforce a previous statement about the importance of fatherhood. I had what we call a posterior anterior dislocation, where my shoulder went to the back first time. This was shortly before the Olympic trials in 2008. Then I worked myself back up through rehab and was attempting a big lift in practice. And the shoulder slipped and went that way. So with about right around 300 pounds over my head, my shoulder went this way, and I just felt immense pain. but I still wanted to compete. And so I started I immediately went to the doctor. I just remember the doctors strapping me to the bed, and they had these bed sheets. So to get my shoulder back in place, they had to pull my body one way and my arm and shoulder then the other way to get it back into place. And so I just remember that pain, even though I was sedated tremendously. But the doc told me when I came to, he said, Shelton, I understand that you're an amazing athlete. I understand that you've done all these great things and you want to keep going. But if you don't stop, you're not going to be able to pick up your son. Not going to be able to engage and do some of the things probably you want to pass on to him. I walked away from weightlifting that particular day. Didn't pursue it any further. I was able to walk away with a clear head because of my commitment. Maybe about one at the time. But my commitment to being a good father and making sure that I was well was important even at that point, more than any aspirations that I had for myself. My son, being able to pass those things on today in hindsight to him, best decision of my life. So I say this, fathering is important. Again, this conference, anytime Dr. Arson, you guys call me, I'm here. So just elated about the promotion of fatherhood. So I want to move into my conversation and just talk really quickly about some of the importance of men's health screening. So we know in our fabric that we carry this masculinity type thing where we think we're tougher than we're tougher than nails, and we're less likely to go to the doctor and get a checkup. Our female counterparts stay on us. I'm guilty of it as well. The last thing I want to do is go to the doctor and get checked out. My wife has to be on me to go and get that annual checkup. But these health screenings, the visit with the doctor, listening and adhering and being compliant with those instructions are key to a healthy lifestyle. Men are less likely to visit doctors than women, working age women. Why the old cliche about women being smarter than us has a lot of validity to it, I think. But a recent study out of Harvard had said that 55% of men had not seen a doctor in 12 months. And then the study also found that 40% of them were walking around with a chronic health condition. They have something that they're dealing with that they may not even be aware of. So getting those health screens is very, very important. And on top of that, again, I'm going to put myself in the mix because I would always be engaged in anything that was physically active I was doing. But it would also end me up having to go to the doctor or going to the ER. But men are more likely to engage, in risk behaviors. And that might be, for adult males and things, drinking, smoking, some of these other things that threaten your health status. There also may be other health cultural implications that make us more susceptible to certain health conditions. So the routine health screens can help detect many of these diseases, oftentimes before the symptoms are present. That Harvard study indicated that a large percentage of males have conditions but aren't even aware of it. So I put this graphic on just to show just a infographic of just some recommended screening. So I know there's men of different ages in the audience today, but typically around your 20s and 30s, your eyesight starts to change. And I'll share a quick story. For me, I was in the ophthalmology office. No, I take that back. I'm lying. I was at the DMV. True story. I was at the DMV, and the tech is telling me that I need glasses in order to renew my driver's license. And I'm like, there must be some mistake. You're sadly mistaken. I don't need glasses. I'm I'm healthy. I got 20/20. And so she said, well, put your head back in that in that screen and read the first line. And I couldn't read it. I had no idea. At that time, I wasn't wearing glasses. And so that was my eye opener to go to the ophthalmologist and the eye doctor and get my eyes checked, because I had no idea. But I was actually trying to renew my driver's license. So by 40, you want to begin to get screened for diabetes. 50s, moving on to your 50s, you want to begin to get screened for different types of cancers, particularly prostate cancer, cardiovascular disease. These things sometimes start to take root for us based on our diet, physical activity level, things of that nature. As we roll into our 60s, the hearing starts to change a little bit, so we may or may not be aware of these changes. And so again, back to these routine health screens, getting these things done on a routine level is very, very important. Also in our 60s, you might start to forget things. So, it's like, all right, what does this mean? Is this just, general forgetfulness, or is this, dementia or early signs of something more chronic like Alzheimer's disease or something like that? And then as we roll into our 70s, you guys really need this long-term view, but as we roll into our 70s, bone density becomes an issue. And reason being is that our balance and coordination is off as we get older. And so falls, now it's not just I've fallen and I can get up. Now I've fallen and I've broken something. So now it takes on a whole new life. So, bone density tests and screenings like that need to be taken care of. Another quick story as I transition. I was in a car accident in 1995 as I was preparing for the 1996 games. In a car accident, again, some more of those risk behaviors that I was talking about. Driving while tired, headed to take one of my final exams. And I hit a semi-truck head on at about 50 miles an hour, Gainesville, Palatka. And the doc said if we're not for weightlifting, or not for my physical activity level, I would have crushed every bone in my body, because the steering wheel hit my chest, lapsed the lung, fractured a rib, cracked my knee, but I would have broken so many bones in my body. But my bones were so dense. The only thing that I suffered was the collapsed lung and slight fracture in my rib, but bone density saved my life. Being active and leading a healthy lifestyle saved my life. And I remember laying on the pavement out on Highway 20 in Gainesville. There's not a whole lot out there. So I was laying on that pavement and just asked for another shot, asked God for another shot, and he gave me one. The rest is history after that. After that, I won 10 national titles, left my mark on the sport. So, health conditions. There are several health conditions that are tremendously threatening to the health and well-being of men. High blood pressure kind of being the gateway to a lot of different health issues, heart disease, heart attacks, stress and anxiety. These things are precipitated by high blood pressure. Normal blood pressure, 20 over 80. Beyond that or below that, you certainly want to consult your doctor. But heart disease is another health condition that's of threat to men specifically. Certain types of cancers. Talk specifically about prostate and colon cancer. Short but brief, just in the context of getting screened. Diabetes, I know in certain cultural communities, particularly in the black community, I always heard my aunts and uncles talk about sugar diabetes. Sugar, it's nothing. It's not a chronic condition that's very, very serious. It has very serious health implications. If not cared for, it can result in limbs being amputated. So there's a lot of other health conditions that, based on cultural factors, may not be addressed in a timely manner, which I just want to reiterate. And then this conversation we've been having about mental health. Mental health, particularly amongst men, is something that's kind of thought of as somebody else's issue and not something that men need to pay particular attention to. But these things are very, very important. So just to go back to high blood pressure, again, it is the gateway to these other health conditions. You really want to know your numbers. You really want to know not just what your blood pressure is, but you also want to know what your cholesterol level is, your good cholesterol versus your bad cholesterol, like in your diet. And so really, really talking through what's the best play for you as an individual. And that play is carried out with you and your primary care doctor. Heart disease and stroke. Heart disease is the leading cause of U.S. deaths among women, men, and other racial groups. A person dies every 34 seconds. This is very, very serious. With high blood pressure and cholesterol being those red flags or those gateway health conditions, health issues that set the stage for more chronic level issue like heart disease. Again, just kind of the distinction between the two. It's basically the result of blocked blood flow to the heart versus the brain, the distinction between heart disease and stroke. And I say this because my father had a heart attack and a stroke at 49 years old, driving a log truck. Had a full load of logs on the back of him. Not only was his health at risk, but everybody that was around him as well. And so a young man at that age, with that intense of health condition playing out in his life, is very, very important. So getting checked, going to the doctor was not something I've ever seen him do. So again, I took a stance that I'm going to change that. So that I go, a little push from the wife, being honest, a little extra push from the wife to go and get checked out on a regular basis. Extra risk factor, a gene pool that makes me susceptible to early heart disease. I think real quick into cancers. There's more than 100 different types of cancers that are of particular concern. But particularly for men, prostate cancer screenings are recommended at age 55. By show of hand, the men in the room, how many of you have gotten your prostate checked? How many of you have gotten your oil changed? In the last 20,000, in the last 5,000 miles, who's gotten their oil changed? All right. So you guys are taking care of your you're not taking care of your cars or yourself, huh? All right. So that's what I'm reading. But I say this to say this. We have to take care of ourselves much in the same way that we take care of those other things that are important in our lives, particularly our cars, guys. We care about our cars. And we typically go and get them checked out on a regular basis. And we need to emulate that in the way that we take care of ourselves. There's obviously two different types of tests, the digital rectal exam and the PSA test. You can choose your poison with that, but it's certainly recommended. The American Cancer Society recommends a colorectal screening at age 45, and then follow-ups at least every 10 years. So it's really recommended that you stay on top of this. This is something that you may not immediately have symptoms, and so it's very, very important to get those screened. Other health conditions, diabetes, overweight and obesity is a major risk factor. Your fat distribution is a major risk factor. Now, I know it's becoming very sexy. They call it, what do they call it, the dad bod now, where you got a little extra weight around the middle. But don't be fooled, guys. We want to pay attention to it. It's also an indication that you might be at risk for for one of these chronic health conditions like diabetes. So if you get in an extra bit of weight in this area and it's not distributing the way that it should, it's one of those risk factors that you want to pay close attention to and go, all right, I need to go and get that checked. Race and ethnicity is another risk factor. A blood pressure above 135/80 is a risk factor. So again, monitoring and getting a routine blood pressure check is important. So that abnormal blood test can also show and indicate increased risk of diabetes. And so if it's caught early, the thing is it can the symptoms are preventable, and so you can get it under control with consultation with your doctor. So let's talk mental health. The National Institute of Mental Health says that 1 in 5 adults are living with a mental illness. Stress, anxiety, depression, bipolar, you name it, 1 in 5 adults are living with a mental illness. This is and for the most part, a lot of men suffer in silence with mental health. We typically do not want to even acknowledge it, particularly black men. This is not something that is typically discussed in our communities. I know it was never discussed in my household. It may or may not have been discussed in your household, but in our communities, we have just now begun to scratch the surface of the conversations that need to be had around mental illness, what it means, how do we treat it, where do we go to get treatment, how do we not just start treatment, but complete treatment, and integrate the practices in our daily lives, and then hopefully pass those things on to our sons and to our daughters as well. So we really want to break this cycle of suffering in silence, which has kind of plagued a lot of communities of color for a long time. For men, some of the onset red flag characteristics around mental health disorders, it may present as anger or aggressiveness. There's a difference in the way that men cope with stress in their lives versus women, and so it doesn't always look the same. I know that I have to keep putting myself in these scenarios. Being a clinician myself, it holds true. If something's stressful in my life, I pull back. I tend to be a little bit more aggressive, and I pull back because I don't want folks to see that side of me. So again, you want to be mindful of what it looks like for you. So diet and exercise. Again, as I said, this is really where the bulk of my expertise really lies. And for me, vegetables, fruits and vegetables in my diet, it's just a key piece. And I know you've heard that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Every day, I have either a tangelo or an orange. I'm from a little small town called Palatka. We used to have orange groves. My grandfather was a grower. And so every day we would eat oranges. And so we were never sick. We were, we just would climb up in the trees and have an orange or a tangerine or whatever, and we'd sit there and play for the whole rest of the day. But that habit has continued in my life. And so my recommendation is that you find a fruit or vegetable that you can make a part of your everyday. So every day you're getting that source in your diet, and you replace snacks and things with sugar and high in carbohydrates and things like that with a healthy fruit or a vegetable. The fried foods, again, it's football season. Guys, it's football season. So with that comes pizza and wings. And, that's 3 or 4 hours. If you're anything like me, again, I'm going to put myself in that scenario. You start out on Saturday. No, you back up. You start on Thursday night. Then you go over until Saturday morning, college, all day Sunday. Then you turn right back around, and Monday night football is on again. So each one of those sittings is wings, pizza, and some stuff we probably shouldn't be having. So particularly during this season, we're at increased risk of not having and engaging in a healthy diet. And so these things put us at considerable risk. Um, so with regards to exercise, stretching is one of the most important things I added as an athlete. When I first came into the sport, I did not stretch. I was very strong, but I was built very tight. And men that use their hands, whether you work in an office or use your hands to earn your living, with muscle development comes atrophy. The muscles get really, really tight, and your range of motion is restricted. And so stretching is very, very important. I didn't start breaking records really until I was at the Olympic Training Center, and they brought in a reflexologist. And this guy actually showed me how to stretch. Like, that's when I really started to get good, because I could get in positions quicker, faster, and I could sustain them over time. So I wish that somebody had just showed me how to stretch earlier. And so when I work with athletes or train folks, that's where we start. We really just start with functional movements and stretching. A lot of body weight exercises. So not really using weight. I typically use body weight probably in like the first 8 weeks of working with an individual, just because we really don't need a whole lot of resistance. If I'm not training an Olympic athlete or anything like that, we start with body weight and really getting control over your body. Low impact exercises, so there's a variety, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then just functional movements. What I mean by low impact, I also do a lot of work in the sand. Sand is good to do exercise in. You can do it on the beach. For folks that don't have time, in our county, there's a lot of parks that have installed these beach volleyball stations, and so they're huge. You can just walk around there. They give you great joint feedback and workout for ankles, knees. They also spike the heart rate because it's much more effort. So the time you can walk around a whole park on the sidewalk, you're getting that high impact from either jogging or running. You can spike your heart rate much in the same way by taking some laps or doing some work in the sand. And it's an area that I spend quite a bit of time working in. Resistance bands. These things you can get at your desk. I know that we all live busy lives. Resistance bands, you can strap them to the bottom of your desk. I've done it. Tie a knot in the door jamb, and you can get a really, really good workout, spike your heart rate, and get that workout that sometimes is restricted by time. Exercises that involve balance and coordination. Again, as I said, as we age, our balance is threatened, and sometimes it gets off. So doing those exercises that activate the central nervous system become very, very important. And then finally, an area of expertise, which is the core. I believe everything starts here. So you really want to figure out what can you do to activate your core, even if you're not trying to get a six-pack, even if a six-pack has already passed you by. Doesn't matter. Activating and having a strong core is very, very important, just because movement really does start here. I want to go back up to diet just a little bit. I also wanted to reiterate minimizing the salt and sugars. Salt and sugars are in almost everything we eat. It's in what seems like an increased amount because things are stored a little bit longer. But just be mindful of the salt and sugar content, and really take those things or minimize those things out of your diet. What I want to do now is, if I could get, can I get 3 volunteers? Volunteers? Come on up real quick. Take one right here. So, all right, I'm going to wrap up. Give me my time. This is a great exercise. This is nothing but just a standard pole. Stretching your shoulders is very, very easy. Again, it mimics the lift that I used to do called the snatch. And so right here, the only thing you have to do is just step forward just a little bit. Hold that up all the way back. You can really feel that stretch all the way down his shoulders. Here, another layer that you can add is just by spreading your feet shoulder width apart. Just lower yourself just a little bit, right there. And now what you're doing is you're stretching every line in his body. Get you ready for sitting for a long period of time, or if you're working with your hands, your body is nice and warm. You can recover. Thank you. Right here, one of the warm-ups that I do here is you get in this, activate your quads. You're just going to walk lateral. This position, and walk back. Activating your glutes, and walk back. So you're in that position, your head is up, and you're walking lateral. Walk, 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 rock, walk, walk, walk. Perfect. Another good exercise for balance and coordination. Then what I talked about earlier was functional movement. You see a lot of people walking with a speed ladder. Everybody that's got a speed ladder is not a trainer. So this thing you can do 100 different exercises with, all right? So the one I just want to do is just walking. Oftentimes, if you look at gait, when I start working with an athlete of any age, I look and do an assessment of their gait, seeing if they're walking straight, if they're actually lifting their knees. So it is just a high knee walk. Walk through, your knees up. Hands are also involved, so you're counterbalancing. Walk, coordinated movement. Step, 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 step. Perfect. Thank you. All right, perfect. Thank you guys. Thank you guys can have a seat. Those functional movements are what keep you active, keep you healthy, and set the stage for a healthy lifestyle. Braylon, how am I on time? All right. So I'm going to close, and thank you guys for your time and attention. For the men in the room, for the women in the room, let's all live a healthy lifestyle and be the best fathers we can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheldon, for this wonderful, awesome world of knowledge that you've imparted upon us, and also the stretching and the exercises that we can do at our desk, I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, okay. Slides will be made available, okay, for those that are wanting. Now, once again, thank you, Sheldon. We are going to have our morning laugh break. So on with the show.
Excited. Me and my wife just had a new baby. Yeah. Well, that's how they come. He's new. My wife wanted to go to the prenatal classes, right? And I'm like, why I gotta go to class? You pregnant, I pass. You know what I'm saying? I could teach a class or something. I don't know what you want me to do, but I went to the class because I love my wife, right? And I'm afraid that they're gonna play the video. I don't want to watch the video. I'm looking for Bible verses against the video. And then the doctor tries to throw in perks. The doctor was like, so listen, during birth, would you like to catch the baby? Catch the baby doing what? What are you talking about? He said, no. If you want to, you can catch the baby. I'm like, isn't that your job to catch the baby? Do I get a discount if I catch the baby? What are you gonna be doing while I'm catching the baby? You went to school to catch the baby. I do comedy. I shouldn't be catching the baby. Anybody here ever caught the baby before? Anybody ever caught the baby? Anybody dropped the baby? Anybody dropped the baby? I asked that question one time, a lady raised her hand. I'm like, you caught your own baby? What does that look like? Raw. Raw. I'm not sure why I growl when I tell that story. It's weird because I can't even tell the story without growling. Well, I'm gonna try it again. Raw. Like it happened every time. I don't understand it. And ultrasounds come in color now. Did you know that? Which is ridiculous. I know it's a black baby. It better be a black baby. Yo, what if you didn't know your baby's nationality until you got an ultrasound? That would change a lot, right? Conversations would change, right? People would be like, so what do you want? What do you guys want? You're like, well, we were kind of hoping for, maybe a Native American, college is so expensive, We just wanted to... And now with the new baby, we're to the point now where she sleeps through the night, which is great, because I was so tired of getting up at like 3 in the morning to wake up my wife. No, I'll get up with the baby. I always get up with the baby, and I would take care of the baby and make sure she had all of her stuff. And I also would talk to her about how much I love her mom and how beautiful her mom is, because I think it's important that a child feel that security. You know what I'm saying? Plus, the baby monitor was on, so.
One of the things that we don't always talk about when it comes to good health is laughter. And that's why we wanted to do that. In all of our faith traditions, and great majority of them, one of the things that we talk about is the importance of laughter. One of the holy books says that, laughter, it's like good medicine. So we just wanted to have a little laugh break there. We now want to officially have greetings from some very important people, though they probably wouldn't want me to say it in that way. But we're actually going to have greetings first from Adam Vreeland, who is a member of the board of directors of Reach Up Incorporated, brand new. We're so glad to have him. Then Glenn Brown. Glenn has been our contract manager for many years, and so, we're so glad to have him. And one of the things I don't think that we said, even when we talked about Shelton, is that prior to Glenn being our contract manager, Shelton was our contract manager. So we've got good relationships. Thanks so much, Glenn, for being here. And then, of course, from our president and CEO, Lo Berry. So can we have Adam, and then Glenn, and then Ms. Lo.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Vreeland. I am actually new to the board of directors, new to Reach Up, and even new to Tampa. I moved here a year ago from Cincinnati. So I'm just kind of getting my bearings, relocated a family of 5. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. I'm a father of 3 kids. I got 2 girls in middle school, and I got a son in kindergarten. And I can tell you, being a dad it's really hard, right? It's the toughest job we'll ever sign up for. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy. And we can all use more of that. But I think at the end of the day, it's the biggest accomplishments we can have as a man, you know, being a good father. I mean, nothing is more important to me when someone comes up and tells me, you know, is that your daughter, Hannah? I'm like, yeah, she's just a really good kid. So even though I've had some failures in my personal life and in my success and my job, I always pride myself on being a good dad because, you know, I don't want any regrets when I become an old man and look back and think, you know, I wasn't there for my kids. So I think that's the biggest regret you could probably have as a man is not being, or a father is not being there for them. So thanks again for everyone coming. It's nice meeting everyone.
Shelton, the problem with going to the doctor is they always find something wrong. That's why I tend to avoid it if I can, but thanks. Great words, great to see you, man. Same colors here, all right. Good morning, I'm Glenn Brown, and bienvenidos, damas y caballeros. Welcome. I have the pleasure of welcoming you in this year's conference on behalf of the Children's Board, and I have to read this because there are some things I have to say. We've been a long-time supporter of Reach Up and a sponsor of this conference. I don't know if you know already, here's the abbreviated intro to the Children's Board. In 1988, the citizens of Hillsborough County voted to create an ad valorem taxing authority, and for those of you who don't know, it's basically a property tax, to provide support and grants to agencies with services designed to help families thrive in Hillsborough County. The strategic emphasis is to invest in programs serving families with children birth to 8, to increase knowledge and to create access and opportunities which allow them all to lead safe, healthy, and productive lives. We fund and partner with Reach Up because they are leaders in best practices for the whole family, and really from prenatal to fatherhood, you know, it just keeps going. We join them in recognizing the valuable role that fathers play in raising children and building our communities. I hope today and tomorrow all of you find bountiful opportunities to meet others with similar interests, laugh, and learn about the aspects of what bonds us all, fatherhood. All right, have a great day.
Thank you, Shelton. Good morning. So good to see you all here, and for those who are virtual, welcome as well. And so I am so grateful about being a part of this wonderful legacy. And the men that came before me, it just reminds me of past, present, and future. And so I'm really happy to see you, Shelton, and such a great supporter. And Glenn, he and I go way back. I won't say how far back, but we go way back, but he's always had our back and assisted us and been there in regards to support with the Children's Board funding, and so appreciate that. And then one of my new bosses, Adam. Adam hasn't even been with us for 2 months, 2 full months, but he's doing just what Reach Up loves, to get in there and make movement and make it happen. And thank you so much, Adam, for pitch hitting for Wilkinson. We appreciate that. I just want to remind everybody, whenever I get the opportunity, I talk about our mission. And so our mission bottom line is to advocate and mobilize resources for equity, and so that all families, regardless of their station of life, will have optimal health. This conference remains important, and I just love the title uh, in regards to affirming the legacy, because that's what we're to do. And in moving forward with life and the situation that we find ourselves in today's world, it has become critically important for men to get more involved and more engaged. What I love about Reach Up Affirming Fatherhood conferences is that it really does remind us that we have a responsibilities as service providers and family members to affirm men's place and station in the lives of our families. And also, it gives us an opportunity for those who have the desire and the will to get it right or get it better. We provide that platform and that venue, and that's a blessing. When I look out in the audience and when I think about the diversity of who is among us and who stand in the midst of the work and work real hard, tirelessly, to make things happen, I'm reminded of from whence we come as an organization with Reach Up. And with Reach Up, when we started, we had 0 men involved and engaged in our services. Right, Ken? Ken was the first part-time consultant for Reach Up. And I just have to put this out there, guys. COVID, as we know, and we blame everything on COVID, I know we do, but it did adversely impact one of my personal goals, which was to definitely, upon my departure and upon retirement, to have not less than 15 men working at Reach Up and being part of our male involvement network. So we're at 7. So most people that know me know how I am about being in compliance and 100%. So, Adam, we got a lot of work to do in the next 4 months to make me 100%. So I just want to say, as always, thanks to Dr. Austin and her awesome leadership and her team for making this a reality and a continual reality. And team members, raise your hand if you're in here so people can see. I know a whole lot are out front, but want to personally thank you. And I have to always give a shout out to my staff. I always say I have the best staff this side of heaven, and I do. And so I just thank you for all your work, and I thank you for the community partners, for your being gatekeepers with us to do what we know needs to be done, and that is to affirm fathers, to affirm wonderful, great men. Thank you, and enjoy the conference. Age ain't no joke. Got arthritis and cataracts.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. Do I have to get on the stage? All right, good morning, good morning. It is so great to be with you all this morning. I am Ronee Wilson. I am Assistant Professor of Epidemiology at the College of Public Health. I am also a family member to Reach Up. So this morning I have the pleasure of introducing our first plenary speaker, who is Dr. Richard Powis. He is actually currently a postdoc at the College of Public Health, but he just accepted a full-time position, so he's here to stay. Dr. Powis, I was going to read your title, but I don't see it up here yet. So if you will join us. Dr. Powis.
They had to, no, thank you. They had to find me someone to introduce me. I'm going to try and bring the energy of Dr. Austin, but I know I'm going to fail, but I'm going to try. So, thank you so much. Awesome, great. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure, such an honor to be here. I'm new to Tampa, newish, about a year also. So this is, I was sort of asked, we have this conference about fatherhood. You should talk, and I couldn't say no. You're not allowed. So, thank you so much. I want to talk to you today about how I think about fatherhood as an anthropologist and a researcher. Next slide, please. It's going to be weird not having control of my own slides here. Bear with me. So here's an overview of what we're going to talk about today. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I think about fatherhood as an anthropologist, what that means. I'm going to talk to you about what fatherhood looks like in the urban metropolis of Dakar, Senegal, in West Africa, where I've done my research. And I'm going to finish up with a couple lessons that I think we can take from this. So, and I'm also going to take a moment to tell you that in addition to being an anthropologist, I'm also a photographer. So most of this is mine with one exception. Let's see if I can flip pages. Cool. So let's get started with the first part. Next slide. Thank you. So I'm a medical anthropologist. I usually expect that people don't really know what that means, so just very quickly, I'm not an archaeologist. I don't study skeletons. I've had to take both of those courses in college, though. I study living people, and I study culture. And to me, culture is what happens between people, right? So culture is it's the things we do, it's the things we believe, which we call practices and expectations. It's something that we all share. It's something that we pass down to our kids. Culture is the relationship that we have to each other and our values and to the world, right? Now, as I said, I'm a medical anthropologist, so that means that I'm interested in culture in the context of health and medical systems. I study how we care for each other. Next slide, please. So specifically, my niche is looking at how men show care. And that means that I want to know what men and fathers do to provide care. But I also want to know what their families expect from them, right? That makes a difference. What do our institutions, like our churches and our schools, teach men about what is expected from them? What does popular culture, like movies and TV shows and music and books, teach men about what is expected of them? What does history teach men? What does the American political system teach men? What about the economy, right? What do these big structures teach men about how to be men and fathers? And finally, how do men navigate all of these expectations, right, that are often contradicting each other and may contradict their own sort of interior masculinities? Next slide, please. And why do I want to know all these things? Because people are a product of their environments. We adopt ideas from each other and from these institutions and from these bigger structures. And sometimes, importantly, we don't know that we're doing it. That's really important. If we want men to do something different, if we want to support them, then we have to appeal, and if we want to appeal to fathers with effective messaging and strategies, then we need to address the systems that keep them from being their best, right? If we want to know how who dads are and why they do the things they do or don't do the things we might want them to do, we have to peel back every layer of the onion, right? And so we're going to do a little bit of that today. Next slide, please. So when I was training in anthropology, and now that I'm working in public health, both sides of this, I hear people say all the time that research on men and fatherhood is a new thing. People have been saying this for at least 20 years, and they still say it today. Actually, anthropologists have been looking at fathers since at least the 1850s. It was one of the first things that 19th century British anthropologists were interested in looking at, and those anthropologists got it wrong. So there's this story about an anthropologist in the 1850s who went into a village in rural France to find a man lying in his bed with his newborn baby. And when the anthropologist asks where the baby's mom is, he's told that she's out working in the field. The anthropologist stayed in the village for a while and found that the man was doing all kinds of care for the baby. And of course, he thought that that was strange. He thought it was strange because it didn't fit his own expectations, British expectations, for what a father should be. When the anthropologist wrote about it, he called what the father was doing couvade. Couvade comes from the French word couveuse, which means it's a hen that sits on her eggs, right? A brooding hen. This is important because in France, at the time and today, the symbol of a strong masculinity is the rooster, right? And so by comparing the father to the hen, he says he's acting like a woman. Again, we have to remember that he's acting like a woman from the perspective, through the lens of the British anthropologist, who had no idea what life and culture looked like in 19th century rural France. When you judge someone through your own cultural ideas, we call that ethnocentrism. If the role had been reversed, the French father may have wondered why the British anthropologist spent so little time with his own children, and we might have found that strange. And he might have thought that the British anthropologist was insensitive or a monster for allowing his wife to bear all of the child-rearing duties, right? Something we learn from this is that fatherhood is kind of weird. Like, it lives in this place between gender roles and kin relationships. And these are things we all feel very personal about, especially if we don't agree on what they mean. Next slide, please. There is a similar story about this kind of misunderstanding and ethnocentrism from my own research in Dakar, Senegal. Let me tell you a little bit about Senegal first. This is the continent of Africa. It's huge. For those who don't know, it's 3 times the land mass as the United States. Senegal is a little country all the way to the west, all the way, it's not marked out, but furthest west there. It's about the same size as Kansas. French is the official language of Senegal. It's the language of government and education, but only about 12% of people speak it, mostly men, mostly living in urban centers like Dakar. There are a dozen other national languages, of which Wolof is the most widely spoken by about 80% of the population. About 90% of the population is Muslim, about 5% is Christian, and as you might expect from any sub-Saharan country, GDP per capita is low. Literacy is low. Maternal and child health outcomes are not great, although they are the best in the region. And they have the lowest prevalence of HIV/AIDS in all of sub-Saharan Africa. They contained Ebola in 2014 with lightning speed with only 1 case. And they are the only sub-Saharan country to have never suffered a military coup. Next slide, please. So I've been living in Dakar on and off since about 2012, doing research on men, masculinities, expectant fathers, and fatherhood. And in 2018, the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, put out this huge report about men's involvement in the health and well-being of their partners and children. But like the British anthropologist in rural France, USAID's expectations of what men should be or should do were very much shaped by their own American cultural expectations, right? So they had this whole list of knowledges and attitudes and behaviors that they thought men should do to be considered involved, and then they surveyed men in 33 countries to see if they actually lived up to those expectations. They included things like men should go to prenatal exams with their partners, or that men should know that they need to give water to a child with diarrhea. Men in Senegal don't do these things, though, and so USAID called them uninvolved. Next slide, please. Men in Senegal aren't uninvolved, though. They do a lot for their partners and their children. Men who have families in Senegal are called the borom kër, which is the head of the household in Wolof. Their primary jobs are to provide financial support, emotional support, and education for their families. And this also includes looking out for the health and the well-being of their families, right? Senegal is 90% Muslim, and these values of the head of the household are deeply intertwined with the values of Islam. So let's take these one by one. Financial support in Dakar is called chercher l'argent, or to find the money. So that means that men are working long hours, often in multiple jobs. It means that they're contacting their expatriated relatives in the US and in Europe to send money back. Women also bring in money from working in the markets or different entrepreneurial activities. But a marker of good, responsible manhood, or being the leader of the family, is whether or not they can provide, right? Not all that different from the US. Men are in charge of education. The idea of education can mean a couple different things in Dakar. It can mean that men are in charge of making sure that the kids are in school, and that the school fees are paid, and that the kids are doing well and getting good grades. It also means that he's a spiritual leader of the household, and that he's instilling good Muslim values in his children, and that he's conducting himself as a role model. And the word education in Wolof also means discipline. And so it means it's his job to make sure his kids are on their best behavior. Men look out for the health and well-being of their families. This means that they are on watch, and they are making sure that his partner and kids are well-fed, getting rest, active in sports, right? It means ensuring that his family members are visiting physicians or imams when they have health problems. And it means having the money to pay for those expenses. And finally, emotional support is a value that encompasses all of these things. Demonstrating financial support, education support, and health care means that he is strong and he is reliable and that his family can depend on him. It provides a sense of safety and security. Emotional support also means developing friendship through play and joking and intellectual stimulation with one's children. So which of these characteristics that I just told you about are measured by USAID when they're asking if men are involved? None of them. So, next slide, please. Let's revisit some things that USAID calls men's involvement for a moment. Remember, I said that men don't go to prenatal visits, for example. They also don't talk to healthcare workers about family planning. But just because men aren't going and doing these things doesn't mean that no one is, right? So in a lot of Senegal, it's normal to have your wife move in with your family when you get married. So if a family with a handful of boys is eventually going to have a handful of families under one roof. We're talking about large multi-generational households, right? And like horizontal households. Pregnant and postpartum women in this context often have an entourage, which is French for the people who surround. It's her team support network, right? So while the husband is out finding money and working long hours, the wife's mother-in-law and sister-in-law is taking her to the clinic, right? She's not going alone. Or they're gathering important information from the midwives that they're gonna tell the husband, the expectant father, when he gets home. So when USAID says that men aren't involved, what they're implying is that women are going through all of it alone, and they aren't. In fact, women prefer that men don't do some of these things that USAID wants them to do. Women call it women's business, or affaire jigéen in Wolof. One of my favorite, and this is a matter of personal, women's autonomy, right? So women are protecting their own role by saying men should stay out of it. One of my favorite quotes from one of my research participants is, "Pregnancy is like the kitchen, keep men out of them both." There's one really, next slide, please. That's my dad, my other dad. So there's one really interesting thing here too. Fatherhood is diffuse. It's not just biological. So for instance, if your father has brothers, they are also called father in Wolof. And they have the same rights and responsibilities to you as they do their own children, as your father has to you. Think about this for a second. So when an American organization goes in hoping to fix dads by getting them involved, they're focused on the biological relationship of fatherhood, not the social relationship. They're basing their notion of fatherhood on an American model of the nuclear family, which doesn't exist there. Doesn't exist in a lot of the world, really. The other important element here is the person known as the njeke, or the woman's eldest sister-in-law. So for those of you women here who have a sister-in-law, that would be your njeke. The oldest one is the njeke. Njeke, now wait, because njeke comes from the word jukar, which means husband, and so the njeke, is considered the female husband, as well as your sister-in-law. So she's an aunt to your children, and your children call her Bajin. This person also shares many of the same rights and responsibilities as her brother, as a father and a husband. But she also carries them out from a perspective of a woman, so it's a little different. Again, organizations like USAID don't know these important cultural factors, so they don't consider them when they think that they have any business talking about what a Senegalese family should look like. And this is why it's important to work with community organizations, right? If you can't commit to long-term immersion like an anthropologist. Next slide, please. Okay, so what do we do with this information? So my work in Tampa is just starting. I wish I could give you some insights into what I'm seeing here. Those of you in this room who work here, you're the experts, right? But I will tell you what I've learned from fathers in Senegal and how that might translate. Next slide, please. If there's one lesson to take from this, it's that fatherhood is a social relationship. When we move away from thinking about fatherhood as purely biological, we can create new possibilities for what fatherhood should look like or can be. We can then understand that fatherhood does not happen overnight, right? It's not something that happens as soon as your first child is born, and it doesn't happen as soon as you learn that your partner is pregnant. Young people start to learn how to be fathers by the way that they are fathered, right? And so whether their own fathers are biological or not, they learn from those father figures. If we want strong fathers in the future, then it means that we have to teach young people long before they have kids how to be decent human beings. We can also come to understand how fatherhood does not necessarily belong to one person, right? Many in this room have told me about how you, and we talked about it earlier, about how you have strong, reliable role models in your uncles or your pastors or your friend's father, often at the same time. This might be a little controversial, but I also think that it's entirely possible for fathers to be women too, just as the aunts are in Senegal and just as many single mothers have to be. It really depends on getting that team together though, right? The entourage, that support network. So for me as an anthropologist, it also is about understanding our expectations of each other and how they may differ, which we can figure out by talking, by exposing our feelings and emotions, by being able to pick our battles with each other and with society. Ultimately, we're interested in making sure that everyone can be healthy and happy, right? Have to come to the realization that we might have a different idea about what that means. If we're on a mission to affirm fatherhood, then I want us to affirm all kinds of fatherhood. Last slide, please. Let me wrap up by telling you about one of my favorite sayings in Wolof. Surely you've heard the phrase, "It takes a village," right? I think that might be an apt summary of my presentation today. But my favorite saying in Wolof is, "Niet niet mooi garabam," which means people are other people's medicine. I hope you agree. Let's be each other's medicine this week and in the future. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. It's a pleasure to see all these wonderful faces in the audience. My name is Cheryl Fitzpatrick. I'm at Reach Up Incorporated, and I have the pleasure to do two things today. The first thing, can we thank Dr. Powis again for an excellent presentation? It's very informative and very enlightening. My second role today is to talk about gamification. How many people like engaging on Hoover? A couple people? Several people. Everybody likes it. All right. Hoover has an opportunity, gives us an opportunity to find out who's here even before the conference starts. So it's an opportunity to find out people's likes and dislikes and movies and all kind of creative things, excuse me, that we like to share. I have the pleasure of announcing the first, second, and third prize winner with the gamification. All right, are you ready? First prize winner is Miss Rose Panero. Is Rose here? All right. Rose, first prize winner. Oh, there she is. Congratulations. Our second prize winner is Mr. James Neely. All right. Wonderful. Our third prize winner is Miss Rhonda Rhodes. There she is. Wonderful. We make this announcement because we want to really encourage you to continue to participate in the photo contest and the caption contest. I really want to compliment you because when I went on the photo contest board, we started out with maybe 3 or 4 this morning. Now we have several photo contests going on. So I encourage you to go. If you want to add some more photos on there, please like them, and then also add some captions, because tomorrow we will be awarding first, second, and third prize winners for photos and for captions. Congratulations, the first, second, and third prize winner, and keep engaging in Hoover. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. G.
All right. Again, I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Powers. I have the privilege of being able to call him Dick. Thank you so much. One of the things that I revealed to him, and as a point of transparency, is that during the pandemic, I became addicted to Nollywood movies. That's loosely, the name for all of the movies actually coming out of Africa right now. And next to Bollywood, which are those coming out of India, Nollywood are the second largest numbers of movies being made. Of course, both of them making more movies than Hollywood. And I say that because many of the things that he talked about in his presentation in terms of the family system and who takes care of the children, who the children belong to, and all of that, I actually found out a lot about that kind of stuff by watching those movies. So I was, as my grandmother would have said, in rural North Carolina, I was tickled to death when I said, oh, I understand what he's talking about because I saw him on those Nollywood movies. So thank you so much. So now I get a great privilege to introduce our next speaker to you, I think, here. I am just making sure I get his bio. I think one of the things that I want to say is that he is a person that I've gotten to know and to care a great deal about the person that he is and to love, as well as his wife, Michelle. And in a minute, I just ask her to stand up so everybody can see his beautiful wife. But KB is a Dove Award-winning rapper, speaker, and podcaster with 4 full-length albums to his name, including 2020's His Glory Alone, for which he won the Dove Award for Rap Hip Hop Album of the Year. The multi-hyphenate, all right now. The multi-hyphenate artist is an inimitable force on today's scene. He has become a #1 hit maker and has received critical acclaim for his studio releases with placement on Billboard's Top 200 album chart and Top 5 on Billboard's Top Rap album chart. His whole bio is in the Hoover app, so I'm not going to read all of it, but this is what I'm going to say. Although KB wears many hats, the joy of being a husband to Michelle and a father to their 3 children holds his heart and continues to propel him into the man that God wants him to be. And I think he would say that's the most important of everything that I've said. So as he comes up, I want Michelle to stand so we can see her. One of the things that a group of us said about KB is when you watch his music videos, his wedding band is always very prominent. You know, because some folks take them off when they're doing those kinds of things. And so some of us OGs, you know, we look at that kind of stuff. And we said, you know, this brother gonna let everybody know, you know, because you know how we be. He gonna let everybody know off limits. So I want KB, I sometimes call myself another one of his mothers, and just have him come up and just do his thing. Thank you.
Family. How we feeling? We feeling all right this afternoon? Thank you for that introduction. I did not write that bio, all that multi-hyphenated stuff, but I guess I'll take it. I'm grateful to be here. Gratitude to Reach Up, Affirming Fatherhood. Dr. Deborah already shared a little bit about our relationship. She is a shero of mine. I aspire to be like her. And the impact that she's had on myself and my family, I would do any. If she calls me, I am there. So God bless you, and I'm glad to be here with you all today. So I go by the name of KB, and for the OGs, a lot of them are interested in what did my mama name me. My mama named me Kevin, so you can call me Kevin. But I go by KB, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I think through fatherhood today. I am a rapper, has been mentioned. I'm an author, an entrepreneur. I'm a loyal friend. One of my best friends is here, Marcos, back there in the back. God bless you, brother. I'm a husband of 12 years to Michelle, who we've just, go ahead and stand up one more time, baby girl. Give him a twirl, baby, a little twirl. No, I'm just kidding. And among my greatest pleasures that I get to be a father of 2 boys and a little girl. I am from Southside St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a city that I love, and it has the people that I love, the places that I love, and it holds a unique spot in my story because there I experienced what I would call the darkest moment of my life next to what I would call the brightest moment of my life. There I was in the pits, but I also found redemption in that same place. I was 16 years old, living on the heels of a very ugly divorce, and with that divorce, my dad was gone. and virtually never to be seen again. I talked to him once when I was 16. That was the last time I talked to him, and he disappeared. I found myself in that place, friendless, moneyless, fatherless, hopeless. I felt unprotected, fearful, in a profoundly dark place that I tried to mitigate. I tried to find ways around it through drugs and violence and the lust. It was dark, but as I said, that made it ripe for redemption. In that dark place, I met a gentleman named Jeremy Baker at school. I heard that Jeremy Baker was a rapper. And at that time, 8 Mile was out, and I saw the movie, so I thought I was a rapper too. So when I saw Jeremy one day, I asked him, bro, do you want to battle me someday at lunch? And he was like, nah, I actually don't do battle. I do Christian rap. To that, I responded, what is that? Christian and rap, Christian, that sounds like crap to me. That didn't sound right. He said, no, that's what I do, and therefore I don't battle. Now, I was struck by that. I saw Jeremy a few weeks later outside eating lunch, and I walked up to the table, and I saw he had a CD on the table with a gentleman on the front cover that looked like me. He had dreadlocks going down his back. He had a red bandana going across his forehead, a red bandana going across his mouth, and the title of the project was Bloody Streets Volume 1. So when I saw Jeremy, I said, hey, I thought you was a Christian. Why are you listening to bank robber music, bro? He said, no, this is Christian rap. I said, there you go with that weird thing again. That doesn't exist. He said, you take the album home and you be the judge. I took the album home, and it was not about killing people in the streets. It was about the blood of a Savior covering people in the streets. The message impacted me. It changed my life. I literally have not been the same since. My life was radically transformed in a myriad of ways. And I've only publicly told that story in the perspective of how it changed me spiritually. But if you would humor me for a second, I do want to talk about how that spiritual transformation had earthly impact, physical impact. In that time, I had been selected to join this program that allowed me to start college early. I was able to essentially, at 15 years old, be in a college, on a college campus, and by the time I graduated, I could leave with a college degree. By the time I graduated high school, I have a college degree. That was the ticket out for me. We thought we might have come across the next Barack Obama. I might be him one day. Here is my way out of this. But I was failing every single class because it was hard to stay motivated to do well in school when I was struggling with the motivation to live. But after that CD, something changed. I began to be focused. I found purpose. My grades began to shoot up. I had no idea that I had gifts and talents, that I was a thinker, a debater, a writer. This gospel, as we call it, gave me a path to meaning. I graduated that program at 18 with both my high school and college diploma. Two of my school counselors wanted me to go on and represent the school in a writing competition. They said, you have real promise there. But I felt like, to their disappointment, I was being called somewhere else to study the Bible. And that's what I did. I went to Bible college. I studied there for 4 years. I grew in character and conviction. During that time, I helped to lead a small group, a small movement. Mark was a part of that, of men and women doing great work in the city, doing music, teaching, doing acts of mercy. We put on a local event one time that had 400 people come out to it, and we had no promotion. It was pure word of mouth. We had come alive. When I graduated college, the same month that I turned 22, I married Michelle, I signed a record deal, and I went into my career from doing things in front of 400 people, which I'm grateful for, to now I'm standing on stages in front of tens of thousands of people. I dropped 4 albums that was mentioned in my bio that I didn't write, I'm sorry. All 4 of those albums went #1. I saw myself in the top 5 next to peers like Young Thug and Rick Ross and Daddy Yankee and Nas. Recently, we just got our first gold plaque, 500,000 records sold. A few years ago, I left the label that I signed to when I was 22, and I signed to Sony. And I got this deal where I did a joint venture where I owned my masters. That was a whole other conversation. But there's the unique things that are happening that the catalyst was that moment when I got that CD, it turned me into somebody else that went out to accomplish things. About 5 years ago, we started a merchandise company. I remember we envisioned in that company that in 5 years we had hoped that we could clear $1 million in sales. We saw it in the first 3 years. We were in a small building that we then moved into a much larger one, 7,000 square foot facility. And it was in that facility that I'm telling this story to get to. Because it was in that facility that I had a moment as I was walking a good friend of mine through it, giving him a tour of what we had. We have a production space. There's studios here. There's warehousing here. And as I'm showing him around, he stopped me and said, KB, you realize this is a big deal, bro. And I said, thank you, bro. But let me show you what we're doing. He said, wait. I feel like you're not getting it. There's something special about this. Do you appreciate it? Are you proud of it? And when he said that to me, it sat with me. It haunted me for weeks because I started to think about the things that I accomplished. And that's the reason I've shared this. And how I can't really think about anything that I've accomplished that I enjoy and celebrate, that I'm proud of, that I look back and say, I'm from Southside St. Petersburg. Look at where we've gotten. It is if all I can think about is I have to keep working. I have to keep proving myself so that I don't enjoy the work of my labor. It is as if there is this invisible individual in my life that I am working really hard to make happy. I have had things happen, my wife can attest to this, where I've called people who I want to celebrate this moment with, and I have this emptiness inside of me where it's like, but it feels like there's somebody else I wish I can call to hear I'm happy with you, KB. And not having it was disruptive. It didn't really come to words and clarity until I got into some good therapy. And I wrote this song with a good friend of mine named Deshaun, what that missing piece was. I'm going to read some of the words from the song for you. It goes, the scars that you left behind with me left me so messed up that I don't know how to be free. When you left, you took my security. Now I can't give myself away. It's too scary. Even when she says that she trusts me, I can't trust enough to know she won't hurt me like you did, Daddy. I said, did you know that I've been to therapy? Abandonment is the word she used for me. But at least I know the thing that hinders me. Now I can finally find a way to live in peace. So no more excuses here for me. It's time for me to move on and let you be like you did, Daddy. Deshaun writes, did you know that I found the love of my life? Did you know that I lost the love of my life? I wrote, did you know that I have a son in my life? Did you know that we almost lost his life? Deshaun writes, do you know that I remember the day, I remember the year in my age, I remember the pain in mom's face, the way you made her cry will never be erased from my head, Daddy. And I ended it like this, but Daddy, don't you worry, we are all on a journey. But I wonder, are you ever proud of me? Do you ever smile at me? My boys will never know this pain. But I want you to know, I forgive you anyway. It was in that moment that it became clear to me that this thing that I have been missing in my life, this empty piece, has much deeper realities than we often appreciate. I stand before you as a man who believes in Jesus. And I think oftentimes, though we live in a country that talks about Christianity a lot, when we think about God the Father and God the Son, we've all heard those phrases. We often forget that the God the Father and the God the Son is a fatherhood relationship. That the context of redemption in the Bible was through the love of a father and the love of a son, and we skip over that sometimes. By way of analogy, there was this moment in the Bible, and I mentioned it, I really like the Bible, guys. But there's a moment in the Bible right before Jesus starts his ministry, and there's a second moment in the Bible right before Jesus gets on the cross. Two of the most important moments in this man's life where a voice from heaven, we get to hear his father speak to him. And what does his father say? Behold, this is my son, in whom I am well pleased. Before his son was able to do anything, before he could prove anything, before he accomplished anything, it's not what you did, it's just the fact that you're my son. I love you and I'm pleased with you. I believe that the approval that a son has, particularly in the story of the Son of God, drove the life and mission of his work. To live, as one theologian put it, soon Jesus will face the cross and be surrounded by mockers in the power of darkness. But here, in the calm before the storm, it is his father that says, son, in all you are about to face, do not forget that I love you. Never forget that I'm proud of you. Simple, human, necessary relationship between the Father and the Son. As I think about that in relationship to our situation, as I stand before you as an abandoned son, there is perhaps nothing a boy needs more in his life than the verbalized word of love, respect, and affirmation from his father. It sets a boy ablaze for great things. And I can even think to my own life, everything that I have tried to go out and accomplish in fear, I've done so based on the social aspect of fatherhood, where a mentor or a pastor or a teacher or a friend has said, I see you, I love you, it can be done. The approval and affirmation of a father settles a boy. It settles a man. It makes us courageous. It makes us strong. It kills the allure of the streets. Because we are in the streets looking for approval. If I can connect with this gang, if I can be down with the gang, then I get the approval I was engineered for. But if I have it already, what can you offer me? I'm approved. As we think about the world in which our boys are growing up in, I'm struck by Jesus' words when he says that I can do nothing apart from what I see my Father do. He says that I do what I see my Father do. And what that means for us when we grow up not seeing our Father do anything, or seeing our Father abuse the father role that they've been given. What does that mean? If it sets you out in a positive way, what's the reaction if you've lost that or it's so broken? Does it not set you off in equal proportion negatively? I listened to this gentleman talk about how he was on Twitter last Mother's Day, going through his feed, weeping at tweet after tweet of sons and daughters praising their mother, and they would start the tweet off by saying, when our dad left. What does that do for us? What does it do to us? I particularly want to spend the rest of my time thinking about what this means for our boys. As you think in terms of the recent shooting in Uvalde, Texas, in light of the fact that there have been over 30 school shootings in America in the past 5 months, virtually all done by fatherless sons. There have already been 250 mass shootings this year, almost exclusively done by sons. We blame guns, violence in the media, violence in video games, poor family values. Each, of course, is a plausible player. But our daughters live in the same homes with the same access to the same guns, same video games and media, and are raised with the same family values, and our daughters are not killing, our sons are. They are killing us, and they are killing themselves. That is a quote from a devastating book called The Boy Crisis, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The Boy Crisis it puts out in a devastating way how dad deprivation cripples not just the boys, but the entire society. Fatherhood is dying, and the effects on boys and men is incalculable, killing us and themselves. Here are some of the facts. Between the ages of 15 and 19, boys commit suicide at 4 times the rate of girls. And between the ages of 20 and 24, the rate of male suicide is between 5 and 6 times that of females. The National Academy of Sciences reports that there's an increase in suicide among white males the increase in the suicide among white males has led to a impact so large that it has rivaled and overcome the entire AIDS epidemic. In reference to African American males, I wept my eyes out when I read this. That while we are only 6% of the population, black males make up 43% of murder victims. More black boys between 10 and 20 are killed by homicide than by the next 9 leading causes of death combined. In reference to men's life expectancy, biologist Randolph Nessy says that if you could just make male life expectancy equal to women's, if you could just bring us up that we don't die as soon, that if you could equalize it, you would save as many lives that would be tantamount to curing cancer. Suicide is the biggest area where our sons and fathers are taking the lead, not just in the U.S., but worldwide. Suicide now takes more lives than war, murder, and natural disasters combined, stealing more than 36 million years of healthy life around the world. And of course, there are other factors. But the death of fatherhood is certainly a salient one. Depriving a child of his or her father is like depriving them of life. There's studies that have been put forth showing the way it actually affects in 9-year-olds how long they will live based on their father's involvement. This is unique and serious. In contrast, when fathers are present, the frequency of a father's visit to their premature born baby. Studies show that the more frequent the father is that the baby leaves the hospital faster. That there are effects to what it means for us to exist biologically in context, in proximity to fathers. There's an interesting study that talks about how just roughhousing with your sons, going home and wrestling, throwing them around a little bit, how it helps control their testosterone, that it does things to fight against drug addiction, fight against pornography addiction. It's unique and it's serious, and yet it is widely ignored. The author concludes in The Boy Crisis that the reason why no one blinks an eye at this stuff is because we have been trained not to care about our boys. Their pain, their struggles, it's in conflict of interest to what we need. We need men that are ready to go to wars and die for us. That's how we were brought up. That's how we thought about this. I thought about one of my mentors in college. He said when he turned 18, he woke up to a beautiful spread of breakfast. He ate that breakfast at his parents' house, his mom's house. He said then he walked outside to get a breath of fresh air, and he saw a bunch of plastic bags with his stuff in it. It's a conflict of interest to care deeply about the boys who we need to be willing to die for us in case there is a conflict. And also, we need them to be willing to go work the jobs that are very dangerous, to build our houses, need you to build these bridges. We have to disconnect ourselves from their emotional states. And what does that do to them? They feel empty, they feel disposable, their pains, their struggles, their mental health is not a priority for us at all. And as a result, we are more alone, we are more confused, we are more conflicted, we are more forgotten. And this is why, to the best of my ability, I want to be a part of anything that is strengthening this idea of fatherhood in this world. I know that not everyone subscribes to the gospel message, but I'll say this. In how I look at the world, if the father-son relationship was the context of redemption in the mind of the Christian, if I could at least use it as an analogy, if it's that strong that universes are saved by fathers and sons, would a society not also be wildly turned upside down for good, rather, if we could restore the relationship between fathers and sons? I want to end this with 6 principles, 6 observations from my own life that I am teaching my boys, that I hope is a part of a rescue mission, a recovery in a society of wreckage. Number 1, what I believe is fathers, our first goal for our children, especially our boys, is not to leave them rich, but to leave them virtuous. Not to leave them rich, but to leave them virtuous. I am often surrounded by first-generation wealth, people that came from nothing, that now have something. They're stable now. And I know what we always say. I just want to give my kids what I never had. And that's great. It's good to pride ourselves in giving our kids the J's that we couldn't afford, to take them to Disneyland. I grew up not even knowing what a vacation was. Give them the things that you did not have, but don't forget, if all we do is lavish our sons with the material things that we never had, we rob them from the character traits that the lack of material things formed in us. Stuff is not enough. Do my boys know the value of hard work? Do my boys know the scandal of lying and dishonesty? How a man's word, he has nothing more important than that in his life. Do my boys know what sacrifice is? I hear sometimes even my favorite comedians talk about how spoiled and privileged and sheltered and fickle their children are. And they make jokes about it. But it's almost as if you're not the one that is spoiling them and sheltering them. We're connected to our children. And it's good for us to save them. We must save them from poverty and from violence. That is wonderful, but that has nothing to do with teaching them the difference between excess and sacrifice, self-centeredness and service, laziness and a work ethic. I'm trying to teach my oldest son now, who's 8, that it's better to give than receive. If my boys do not learn the value of helping others as a goal in life, I am failing them as a father. No matter what I have provided for them, I can't make up for it. That is why character is so important. Character and virtue is what builds the world. Every successful company is on the back of a product that helps other people, unless it's predatory and oppressive. You can't be in a healthy marriage if you don't understand what it means to be sacrificial, what it means for you to otherize, to focus on folks outside of yourself. It is rarely a lack of talent, a lack of charisma, a lack of drip, a lack of being able to enjoy a Lamborghini. None of those things will ruin you. What will ruin you is a broken character, because your talent will get you into the room, but if your character is broken, it will get you kicked out immediately. We need virtuous men and folks that focus on it. Character is king. Number 2, these other points are shorter, I think. Fathers, teach your boys how to be masculine men. Oftentimes when we think about effeminate, that word, or effeminate men, I understand that within Christian America, there's been much abuse around that phrase. But I'll tell you this. When we understand what masculinity is, we find very quickly that it has water, praise God. We find very quickly that mannerisms, tone of voice, having emotions, being engaged in what the culture calls feminized behavior, that has nothing to do with what true masculinity is. Masculinity is opposed to easy pleasure. Those that get rid of responsibility and duty because they want to focus on themselves. Weak men are irresponsible. Moral softness, self-indulgence, self-centeredness, self-preservation, that's what it means to be soft. I grew up in the hood. We threw that word around all the time for all kinds of stuff, calling people soft for one thing or the other. We often don't see that the true soft person around us is the man who deliberately avoids things that are hard. The dude that's lazy. The dude that won't engage. I am also, thank you, sweet. Look at you, my Panamanian princess. God bless you. I'm a fighter as well. I box regularly. I was sparring yesterday with a pro fighter. I'm around dudes that feel macho. If you're an MMA fighter, bodybuilder, pro boxer, whatever it may be, to be physically hard but morally soft is a weak man. If you lack self-control, that is a weak man. If somebody steps on your shoe and you want to kill them, you are not strong, you're weak. Playboys, the ladies' man, the folks that my hip-hop culture lifts to the sky. Weak men. Any man can spread his half-committed love and affection on 100 women. Only a strong man can give one woman 100% of his love and affection. That's strength. One day, my son, my oldest, KBJ, he asked me, he said, Daddy, am I too young for love? And I was taken aback because I was minding my own business. I wasn't ready for that. He said, am I too young for love? And I said, baby boy, do you think you're in love? And he said, Daddy, I don't know. I said, well, let me tell you how I love your mom. I'll gladly die for her. If someone came into this house and it was my life or her safety, I'm out of here. I would die for you and your brother and your sister. What it means for me to love is not just to enjoy her, I will sacrifice for her. And I went on that for about 30 seconds, and I said, baby boy, do you love that girl at school? He said, nah, I don't love her, cuz. Nah, we don't. That's too far. That's strength. Number 3, I'm almost done. Teach your sons grace and repentance. I have a song that I wrote for my daughter entitled Masterpiece. I wrote that song so that after I die, she can hear me singing to her over and over and over again. I want her to hear my voice after I've passed on. But in that song, I have this line that I say, when you fall, baby, come to me. Not if you fall, but when you fall, come to me. What is far more painful for me as a father is not that my daughter has made a mistake, but that she would feel like she cannot bring her mistake to me. It's important for fathers to establish a culture in their home where their children can make mistakes, where their children can be broken just like you. Are we not all broken? Are we not all looking for solution and salvation? They don't need to be perfect model citizens while we give ourselves passes. Patience goes the distance. As much as I am hoping for my boys' success, it is important, if not more important, that I am loving them through their failures. Number 4, fathers, be disciplined in your discipline. Discipline in proportion to the offense. Is this not a big issue for, we know our community. That I'm catching myself because I've wanted to do it before, where you feel this urge to take out on your child an issue that you got with somebody at work over spilled milk. That if we could discipline our children in a way that is loving and gracious so that at the end of the discipline moment, they know that they're in trouble, but they also know that they're still loved. I want them to learn from our experiences, not just get better at hiding things from me. There was a moment, it's hard for me to talk about, I mentioned it in the song that we wrote, where I talked about, in the song that I wrote, I talked about almost saw my son die. And I remember that moment. I won't get into details. I'm almost done. But the situation was created from my son ignoring me. He wasn't listening to me. And it was almost over. When I got him home, I had planned a historical discipline moment. It was going to be monumental. It was going to be award-worthy, okay? I was furious. I sent him to his room when he got home. I stayed downstairs with Michelle. I calmed down. And once I calmed down, once I stopped seeing red, I went up to talk to him. I walked into the room. The lights were off. He was on his bed weeping. I walked over to him, and he turned over, his face stained with all kind of tears. And he said, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Not even thinking about the punishment, but feeling remorse over what happened. And it realized to me that disciplining my child is not about me and my ego. It's about helping him learn. So we took that moment and we talked about what safety looked like moving forward. And I trusted that God has a way to use life to discipline my boys in ways that I cannot. Fathers, be disciplined in your discipline. Number 6, and this is it, I'm literally done. Teach your boys how to lose. Life is filled with L's. You lose, you cry, you move on. And don't miss number 2. If we have boys that see every time a tear leaves their eye as a sign of weakness, then our boys are continuing in actual weakness. I think about how set off we can be sometimes, just somebody looking at us wrong. And then we call masculinity and manhood not showing emotion. And then we look down on women. When the truth of the matter is, might you have cried a little bit more and released the pain, maybe you wouldn't be in jail right now because someone looked at you wrong and you punched them in the face. It's okay. Men cry. I like Jesus. Jesus cried. Life is filled with L's. Crying. Lose, cry, move on. And in these moments, we learn that our manhood is not violated. It is not compromised when we feel. Get back up. We keep moving. Fatherhood, as my brother who was up before me, the anthropologist, shared, sometimes, and we almost obsessed over the nuclear family in America, where we only see fatherhood like golf. It's a single guy playing the game. And if you're like me, you don't have the single guy. My biological father was killed when I was 2 years old in a drug deal. The father who I've been referring to, who abandoned me, adopted me. I don't have a guy. For many of us, fatherhood is not like golf, where there's one individual who is helping to win the game, to bring us to victory in life. But fatherhood, for me, though it could be incomplete, it could be the most moving, substantial, important piece of a man's life, is more like football, where it's a team of men and coaches who are all giving us angles on how we can be successful. No one individual on the team, no one individual on the field can bring us the championship, but it's a collection. So let me just say, especially for my young men in here, the men in your life, the mentors, the teachers, the leaders, the pastors, the mentors, don't take them for granted. Ride their coattail until you can see where you're going. Because it has been the culmination of the fathers that has given me those 6 points and has stood me up as the man that I am today. In the art of war, one of the points that is made about how the enemy knows he has won is when those who are in the army doubt their superiors. If we live in a culture of individuals who cannot submit to leaders, that cannot be fathered, you ain't my daddy. If that's our attitude, we will stay where we are. But to lean into those who are there for us is life. For my wounded fathers, like me, being love helps us to feel love. In the same way, being a good father heals the wounds of our fatherlessness. Let us go be men, young men, boys that submit to the fathers that we have in our life, that we can grow and be whole. And let us be fathers that heal through fathering. Thank you.
Lillian has been fixing my earrings all day. Every time I put my mask, they come off, so just give me a sec. All right, we just want to take this time. If any of you all have questions for KB, we've got 10, 12 minutes. And he's still here, willing to answer questions. Yes. Would you?
Kind of black church culture, and normally a short sermon is like an hour. So I cut like 10 points, so I only got 6. So, you know what might be helpful too? I have the longer version of this talk that maybe we can make available to some folks. Okay. The 6 points. Let's see here. Okay. Yep. 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 Yes. You are right. I counted wrong. So when I saw how much time I had, I saw I had 35 minutes. I cut a whole bunch of points out, and I misnumbered them. There was only 5. And thankful, because I'd still be up here speaking right now. I'd be on point 3 right now. So, but there is a longer version that has about about 7 to 10 points in it, something like that, that we can get. But yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, good question. Are we doing Q&A now? Oh, sweet, I'm sorry. Are there any questions?
Pete.
I didn't go to elementary school in Southside St. Pete. So I actually went to my mother and father, my adopted father. That's whose last name I have. He was a military man. So when I was 6, I went to Suncoast Christian or Catholic Academy. You see it off of 275. I was there in kindergarten. We left with my mom's new marriage to my father, and then we moved to Illinois, Southern Illinois, and stayed on Scott Air Force Base for 7 years. They divorced, and my mother and I went back to Southside St. Petersburg. I did some time in middle school, just like a semester, but I went through high school in St. Pete. I was born in St. Pete. Yes. Yeah. If you would have asked me 4 years ago, what would you do if you ran into your dad at the airport? As I told you all, my passion, Marcos knows this, my passion since I was a boy was fighting. I've always loved boxing. I love boxing. And probably in the last 5 years, I've gotten a lot more serious about it. So I wasn't a little boy anymore. 5 years ago, if you would have asked me, if you see your dad in the airport, what would you do? I'd say I'm probably going to use all my boxing skills on him immediately for what he did to my mom. And the thing that really opened my mind was 2 things, I would say. Number one is I was able to identify that hatred that I had for him was living rent-free in my mind and my heart, and it was doing other things to me that I didn't realize. And that's when I need a good therapist for, a good counselor for. That there are ways in which your hatred is destroying you. When I was able to name it, that was powerful. The second thing was when I could see that I am also a broken daddy that doesn't get it right. I saw myself as a brother to my dad as opposed to just his son. That I also got my problems, and if the circumstances were different, perhaps I might have made different choices. I started to humanize him. I didn't see him as a roach anymore. I saw him as a man. And when I saw that, I said, oh, so I can continue to let this hatred for him live rent-free in my life. Or I can begin to humanize him and work towards forgiveness. And what I mean by forgiveness is letting it go. And that's a whole different conversation, because he certainly hasn't apologized. But I can let it go and love him regardless. When that happened, it opened up the floodgates, and I began to remember. He taught me how to fish. He taught me how to wake up early in the morning. To this day, I wake up early in the morning. My work ethic I got from, I saw he was a soldier. He woke up and strapped up his boots, and he went to go defend the country every day. I watched that. There were moments where he did things for my mom. He always opened the door for her. When I was able to humanize him, I was able to see that God used him in ways to make me the man that I am. Now, it came with some injury, some significant injury. But I don't want that to be the story. I also want to remember the ways in which he is a part of team fatherhood in KB's life and appreciate him for what he contributed. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah, so when I was in college, I took a class on counseling. And I took that class, and particularly they focused on marriage counseling, which is, I wrote a book that's coming out next year that is really a critique of American Christianity. And that's one of the things we overemphasize marriage counseling. Marriage counseling is good, but I learned about marriage counseling. We don't talk about other kind of counseling as well. But I remember in marriage counseling, there was a particular researcher, I believe his last name was Gottman. Yeah, Gottman. Who was able to predict with almost certainty if a marriage was going to last or not in like the first year. He's like, oh, y'all ain't going to make it. I'll see you in 10 years. Which showed me that we got to save our marriages before they start. And how do you do that? You got to get counseling. Me and my wife took it too far. We got pre-engagement counseling. And then we got premarital counseling. And then we got regular counseling. Pastor Tommy, that man right there with the Fearless shirt on, he married us. He was a part of that counseling, okay? So the reception was, I saw the fruit of it. I was at the gym last week, and there's a dude there, a young fighter who was very, very tormented. I pray with him almost every week. He's constantly talking about how he thinks about taking his own life and how he just can't get ahead and stuff like that. And I started making some suggestions, and I said, do you have insurance? He said, my parents do. I said, well, see if they have, counts therapy on their insurance. He said, oh, no, I don't need no. I go, oh, come on now, bro. I don't need no therapy now. Like, he was insulted that I suggested that to him because it's so stigmatized with us. And part of what we need to do with the stigma, the catalyst for me seeing the world of how therapy is so powerful was through marriage. But I think one of the ways that you could think about this is how we think about money. We all get money. We understand good counsel for money, right? We know it's hard to carry it out sometimes. But if I told you, there's a thing going around on the internet, if you had a chance to get $500,000 or have a 1-hour conversation with Jay-Z, which would you do? Now, the correct answer to that is $500,000, all right? You can figure it out once you get the $500K, what Jay-Z was going to say. But people were conflicted. They were like, no, I want to get Jay-Z's wisdom. The fact of the matter is, if you can sit down with somebody that's been where you've been and they can give you the codes, only a fool would not take you up on that. And life is such that we need people that can sit with us, that are not so close that they can call us out when we're acting stupid. That's one of the things that I enjoy about going back home to the south side of St. Petersburg, is sitting with my guys or sitting with my family members and hearing the ideas of what they think. This is what I'm going to do to get ahead. And then let's work through that. Let me counsel you through this. And maybe I can save you from falling into a ditch. So I think seeing the stigma come down was really important for me, seeing the fruit in my life. But I also want to be a part of helping people to see that if you need doctors for your body, come on, man. You break your leg, you're going to try to figure that out on Google or hope it just gets better? You need a doctor. If you need a doctor for your body, you need a doctor for your soul as well. And that's what I think therapists are. And there's a chapter in my book about that, shameless plug. It comes out in April. I'll make sure, or March next year, but I'll make sure that you all get some at Reach Up. Other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah. Mm. Yep. Yeah. Mm. Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 I really want to hear what you think, brother. I'll say this real quick, and I'll pass the mic. One of the reasons that I jumped all over this opportunity, I tried to get. I was like, I want to just come and serve. I want to do it for free. You know what I'm saying? And Dr. Deborah was like, no, give it to charity. We taking care of the people that come here. I'm like, okay, all right. Because I know that for the most part, my work in training young men has been grassroots. It's been very much individual. It's been in the context of a local assembly. And we have, Marcos can attest to this, the men that are in our extended community are the result of team fathers that have, we've bought houses, we've paid off debts, we've fathered our children, we have helped to think through critically how can we turn our boys into men, how to protect our daughters. All of those things have happened very much in an individual way. But what I realize is that there's a systemic issue as well, and that I have not been equipped or engaged in as I should. Part of my being here is to learn about how can I help use my platform to be a voice for rethinking what this means. Now, we do a lot of this on our podcasts, because when we talk a lot about the intersections between race, social justice, and Christianity, and we hear it all the time. People are talking about the father issue in the black community. And oftentimes the people who are loudest about it don't have good intentions. They're trying to silence change. They don't think about the ways in which they might be more helpful. They really just want to shut down conversation. So we've thought about it and tried to give a wider. The CDC came out with that study I'm sure you're all aware of a few years ago about the involvement, the difference in understanding even in the black community around what fatherhood is, that though a man might not be married to a woman, that he may still be present in that child's life, and how the data doesn't reflect that. So we try to get those kind of things out, but I think that there's a massive gap in what we should be as a local community in helping to beat down the doors of the systems so that they might see things differently and actually get fathers the support that they need.
Thanks. 5 minutes, all right. What am I doing? I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Not much right now. As an anthropologist, my training is sort of to walk into a situation and analyze lots of different sort of levels of engagement when it comes to cultural behaviors, practices, expectations, but also looking at, like I asked all those questions, like what are the expectations of the family? What are the expectations of the economy? What are what are we teaching in churches and schools and institutions like that, right? And then anthropologists are not very good, not very well trained at like translating that into action. And I'll be the first to tell you that. I got no training in a lot of that. And so 2 years ago, I pivoted into public health because I was not satisfied with my PhD. Like, I needed more training in something else that was going to teach me how to put that into action. And so that's why I came into public health. That's why I got the postdoc and just accepted this position. And I've been working with ReachUp on and off a little bit for the last 2 years, not quite sure where I was going to end up after the postdoc. So now I'm here for good. And so you're going to see a lot more of me trying to figure out how to, take what I've learned doing the research in Dakar and in Tampa and putting that into action.
Thank you. I think we had great speakers today. Let me go up. And I want to say thank you so much, KB Doctor, too. So a round of applause again for both of them. I think they deserve it. Thank you again. So I guess right now it's lunchtime. So let me give you a little instructions. We have 1 hour. Everybody's on their own. Some people may Uber. You're welcome to go. And there's some restaurants nearby. It was in the platform, but we also have at the registration some information. And there are 3 restaurants that are giving us a special deal. Just make sure before you order, you mention you are coming from Affirming Fatherhood Conference from ReachUp. The restaurant that we share the parking lot is Jerk Chicken. It's really good. We have $5.99 meal for us, which is really good. You don't have to walk. I mean, it's walking distance. You're welcome to eat it there or come here. We have set up some tables. We have drinks and snacks outside. We also have Miller's House right close to University Mall, where are giving us $1 off from their lunch special. And then Portillo's, who everybody in their bag should have a voucher for a free slice of cake. Okay? Thank you so much. I'll see you in an hour. Any questions, please let us know. Enjoy.